Hey everybody, with power outages and wild weather events happening more frequently all over the place and pricing starting to fall on portable power stations, there are on a lot of people's shopping lists. But how do you know what to buy and what to look for? There's a sea of specs and numbers all over the place. This video is not sponsored by anybody. I'm going to try to help you understand what the numbers are on a portable power station, so that way you kind of know what you should be looking for, in my opinion. If you're new to this channel, this is a build channel. If you check out all my other videos, I build these stations and I can save a bunch of money. I understand that not everybody's comfortable doing that, so we're going to talk about pre-made stuff. Not all that worried about brands, Ankler, Jackery, Pecton, Blue Eddy. They're all pretty good and the pricing are all pretty comparable. So it's really a matter of Amazon reviews and your opinions and who's got the best price. But I think if you stick with the big name brands, you really kind of can't go wrong. So there's two big numbers in portable power station, solar generator, whatever you want to call it these days. And really, there's only one that's important. So you've got wattage, which is the most amount of power you can pull out of the device. And then you have watt hours, which is basically the size of the battery. I firmly believe that the smallest portable power station that you should buy for emergency use is 1,000 watt hours, preferably 2,000 watt hours. Well, where did I get that number from? Well, there's a video I'll post over here where a guy plugs multiple refrigerators into a portable power station, and he finds that a full-size refrigerator typically pulls about 1,200 watt hours over a 24-hour period. So if you buy a smaller power station than that, you won't be able to get a full 24 hours on your refrigerator, which in my opinion is one of the more important appliances that you want to keep powered so you can stop your food from going bad. I have another video that I'll post where I talk more about the math between a portable power station and a generator. Even little things like a box fan, this draws about 60 watts. Well, 60 times 24 hours in a day gets you to around 1,200 watt hours. We're getting into winter time now, and so people are talking about heating. I strongly encourage you to buy an electric blanket. Why? Because a little space heater like this pulls around 1,000 to 1,500 watts, which means it'll run for about an hour, hour and a half on one of those portable power stations. Whereas in my testing, a nice electric blanket pulls about 400 watt hours a night over an 8-hour period. So a 1,000 watt hour power station will get you 2 nights or so on an electric blanket. During the Texas freeze, I would have killed for my electric blanket. So the watt hours is the size of the battery. I really think that you need to be 1,000 watts at 1,000 watt hours, preferably more, preferably closer to 2,000. So that way you can get common things through a 24-hour period. There's a lot of smaller stations like the EcoFlow River 2 is about this big that is on sale for like $160, but they're like 250 watt hours, which is just not enough to do anything in an emergency situation. It's a camping or tailgating unit. People will say, well, what about charging my phones and my tablets? That might be true, but I think there's better ways to do that, which are USB power banks. I firmly believe that everybody who owns a cell phone should have 1 or 2 or more of these things. They keep getting cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. I've got about 8 of them. Every time they go on sale, I buy one. So a 20 or 30,000 milliamp USB battery pack is like $30, and it'll charge your phone like 8 times. So I'm just not seeing the purpose in one of those little mini power stations for emergency use. The other number that you will commonly see is the wattage, which is the maximum amount of power that the power station can put out. So a normal electrical outlet in a house in America draws or has the ability to supply between 15 and 1800 watts, depending upon if you're on a 15 or 20 amp circuit. So let's call it 1500 watts just to make it even. So as long as your portable power station has a wattage rating of 1500 watts or better, you'll be able to plug in essentially anything into it. And I have never yet seen a portable power station that has a 1000 watt hour battery that didn't have at least a 1000 watt inverter in it. So they kind of come together. If you have a big enough watt hour, big enough battery pack, the inverter should kind of take care of itself. Yes, there are other appliances that can pull a lot of power, like a circular saw, that's true. Your coffee maker, that's true. They will pull a lot of power, but I'm talking about for emergency use. I'm not going to be using my circular saw during an emergency. Coffee pot, a lot of people will consider that to be an emergency. People are addicted to coffee. I get that. Anything that's got a heating element in is going to just draw a ton of power, and it's not worth it. Use a propane camp stove. Don't try to plug your Keurig into a portable power station. It might work, but it's not an efficient use of power, in my opinion. So 1000 watt hours, preferably more, preferably closer to 2000, so that way you can get your fridge through a 24-hour period, and at least a 1000 to 1500 watt inverter for emergency use. Now, let's talk about solar. We've got a couple of dirty little secrets about solar. Number one, it requires the sun. So it's overcast outside. It's December 7th, and it's pretty gray and cloudy outside. So if the power went out, my solar panels would not do much for me right now. So we need to have clear sun. During the Texas freeze, it was beautiful outside. It was just cold. So my solar system, if I would have had it built by then, would have been great. So you need to have the sun. Number two, you need to have a clear shot of the south. I live in a house. I've got a yard. I have a beautiful southern exposure. If you've got trees on the south side of your house, forget about solar. If you live in an apartment and you don't have a balcony, or your balcony doesn't face south, forget about solar. Just forget about it. You're not going to get enough sunlight. If you have an eastern or western facing balcony, you might get a little in the morning or the afternoon, but it's not going to be really enough to do a whole lot. So forget about it. If you're in an apartment and you don't have a south facing balcony, spend the extra money on a bigger battery pack than on solar panels. It's just not worth it. The other thing about solar is that the sun is not out as long as you think that it might. In the solar world, we talk about something called peak hours. So if you have a fixed solar panel that you're not going to go out there and move every 15 minutes, the sun only hits it directly for a certain number of hours of the day. And that changes based on time of year and where you live in the hemisphere. So I'm obviously in Texas, and Texas, Florida, Arizona, California are really good for sunlight exposure. I was born in North Dakota, the northern part of the country, not so much. Average peak sunlight hours in Texas is around 5 hours. Up north, it's 3 or 4, particularly in the winter. So I use a 1 to 4 guideline. So you take the size of your battery and you divide by 4, and that's the size of the panel that you should have. So if you have a 1000 watt hour battery power station, divide by 4, that means that your solar panel needs to be at least 250 watts. So that way the panel can recharge the battery within a single day. So if you have a 2000 watt hour power station, that means you need 500 watts of solar. And this is perfect world because solar panels are not perfectly efficient, and you got clouds and things like that, but use a 1-to-4 rule. So if you have a 2,000 watt hour power station and you plug a 50 watt solar panel into it, which I've seen other people in other videos do, you're not accomplishing very much because you're not putting the electricity back into the power station fast enough that it's coming back out. So 1-to-4. One of the other numbers that people will look at that I think kind of solves itself is how fast the battery can recharge via AC. So I've got another buddy who lives down the street who had a power outage, and he had a generator and he had multiple power stations. And so the EcoFlows will rapid boost charge, and you could recharge them from the internal AC outlet in like 90 minutes. So he would turn on his generator, plug in his power stations for an hour or two to recharge them, shut off the generator to save gas. I think that that's an interesting idea and probably a pretty good one. I have another friend who doesn't believe in solar. He's just not a fan of solar. And so his method is to use a small generator to recharge his power stations and then turn the generator off to save gas and to save noise. And then run his appliances over on the power station, and then just recharge them the next day with his small gas generator. It's an interesting idea. It's got kind of pros and cons, but certainly having a small generator as a backup to solar, not a terrible idea. Most of the bigger power stations that are 1,000 or 2,000 watt hours will have a rapid charge feature in them. So again, it kind of takes care of itself if you get up into the large sizes. It's really the little cheapy ones that are fairly slow on recharging from the wall. That's why they're so cheap. But if you're looking at 1,000 to 2,000 watt hours, it really will kind of take care of itself. The other thing on solar is the panels themselves. Every brand, every company makes their own brand of folding solar panels that they will sell in a package. They are convenient because they're small and lightweight, but they are incredibly expensive for what they are. Every portable power station I've seen has the ability to accept the voltage from a residential panel that you can buy off of Facebook or Craigslist. And that's what I would recommend personally. They're bigger and they're heavier, but they are significantly less expensive. For example, I have a 300 watt panel that I bought off of Craigslist for like $80. Now, it's 5 feet tall and 4 feet wide, but it was $80. The portable folding ones are usually around $1 a watt, sometimes more than that. Again, they are convenient because they fold up and they're easy to kind of move around. They're just really expensive. If you go the Craigslist route, you need something called typically will need an adapter from an XT60, which is a little yellow triangular plug, to an MC4, which is these big black barrel connectors that solar panels use. It's like a $15 adapter, but you can save a ton of money by buying used residential panels online than the folding ones. Pros and cons, the advantages and disadvantages, but it'll save you a bunch of money. One of the other big questions that often comes up, I know we're in winter time, so not really a big deal, but for hurricane season is air conditioners. People want to run portable air conditioners on a battery pack. It's just not going to happen. It's been tested. Even an itty bitty tiny window AC unit draws around 400 watts, which means on a portable 1,000 watt hour portable power station, you'll run a window AC unit for about 2.5 hours. And then you got to spend all day recharging it back up. So window AC unit, space heater, not happening. For cooling, use a pedestal fan. For heating, use an electric blanket. I'll put some links down below to ones that I like. Well, I hope that this was helpful and useful, and put a comment down below and let me know what you think. Thanks, and we'll see you on the next one.